Welcome to episode 23. And you guys, I am so excited about this one. Today we have Jasmine Star on, and I am so stoked to share it with you. She's been someone I followed for the past 2 to 3 years and continues to impress me and the whole entrepreneur world. In this episode, Jasmine breaks down her journey leading up to being the most sought out business strategist and, of course, drops massive value on handling imposter syndrome as well as tips that you can immediately implement on Instagram to grow your followers. For those who may not know her, Jasmine Star is a photographer and business strategist from Newport Beach, California. She dropped out of law school and became an internationally recognized entrepreneur, later to become the founder of Social Curator, a social media marketing membership for business owners. Jasmine empowers entrepreneurs to build a brand, market it on social media, and create a lifestyle they love. Some days you'll find her featured in Forbes, Entrepreneur, and Inc. magazine, but most days you'll find her in sweatpants scrolling through Instagram. Her favorite days, though, are spent with her dog and her high school sweetheart eating tacos. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as much as I did. Now let's get to it. This is Unleash Your Inner Legend, a podcast featuring modern day legends sharing their life choices, habits, and routines that got them to where they are today. Get ready to be inspired and to take massive action to unleash your inner legend. Okay, everyone, Jasmine Star is in the house. What's going on, girl?
I am so happy to be here. Thank you.
I'm so happy that you're here. So you've been super busy killing it on stages, on your newly published podcast, on obviously your huge business that you got going on. But first, before we kind of start talking into that cool stuff you got going on, I would love to kick off this episode really just talking about your journey on how you became this mega kick-ass social media guru with a major following that so many business owners like myself respect. I know it didn't happen overnight, so I would just love to hear your story.
You know, I think there's different iterations that we all take as entrepreneurs. And I think that when oftentimes that question, it almost, Holly, I'm not even lying, it almost makes me nervous because I was like, wait a minute. I'm a big entrepreneur. Like, wait. So I'm like, are you talking to the girl behind me? I mean, so I think it's really important to take a step back and understand that there's been iterations in my business. I started first my photography business and really focused and honed in on serving this particular audience, right? So instead of being a photographer to all people, I decided to focus in just on wedding editorial and weddings itself. And people are like, that's such a small market. And I'm like, yes, but if I can really hone in on a small market, it will sharpen my learning curve. And then once I sharpened my learning curve and I was able to build a business and a brand, from there I started focusing on empowering photographers on how to build better businesses. And once I did that, I then pivoted and said, well, can I help small business owners? And this is where the awkward part of the story happens, because I think that people like to put other people in a box and say, this is the box in which you reside. Mm-hmm. And it was around 2015, 2016 that something really started stirring in my heart. And I'm like, I love photography and I will always be a photographer, but I know that there's something bigger. There's a bigger purpose for me. And I have become like the biggest champion of claiming the thing that you want to become. And so in 2015, 2016, I started saying I was a photographer and business strategist. And there was a lot of people with that side eye, like, oh, you know, bless her millennial heart. And I'm like, no. Like I'm doing stuff. And now to hear you say, oh, like to become this entrepreneur who's using social media. And I'm like, that's the story, Holly. Like, whatever it is that that you want to do and whatever it is that people who are listening want to do, I firmly believe that you must embody that name and title and say it again and again and again so that people believe it. And they won't believe you in the first month or even the first year. But when your actions map your aspirations, then you ascend. And I think that's like, how did you get there? Well, girl, like years of hard work and then embodying the thing that I wanted to do.
I got to put a lot of emphasis on as far as you as a photographer, because you weren't just like this cute little photographer that did it on the weekends. Like you had a major successful business that you worked really hard from. So it's like, how did you, and you said you felt it in your heart, but it's like, how did you literally just wake up and took that action on saying, okay, so I'm taking this leap of faith and I'm leaving this major, thing that I worked so hard for my baby to now I'm going to go help others on a massive scale that's scalable so that people outside of my little realm can start feeling me? Like, how did you decide to take that action?
So in 2000, oh goodness, in 2000, my mom was diagnosed with brain cancer, and she had an 8-year battle. And when you are in your formative years, like there I was, like 19, 20, 21, 22, and she struggled all the way through until I was like 25. There's something that happens in your brain. Like you're mapped by the fragility of life. And so the whole thing that I look back at my life is I never wanted to end up wondering what if. Is that every time my mom went for another brain surgery, another round of chemo, I can't help but feel like she was looking back and saying, what I wish I had done. And I think that by the time my mom walked me down the aisle to marry my best friend, the doctors had said her time had come. There's no more chemo. There's nothing more that they could do. And so I planned a wedding in 3 months. My high school sweetener and I planned a very small wedding, and she walked me down the aisle against all odds. And I have to tell you that just yesterday, my parents celebrated their 43rd wedding anniversary. And so that's like the silver lining of the story. But what happens when you don't know the silver lining? What happens in 2005 and 2008 when all you feel is fear? And I thought to myself, life is so short that none of us are guaranteed. So when it comes time to the question about, Jasmine, what made you pivot? I'm like, how could I not? How could I not look at how fast life goes and say, is this enough for you? Or do you want to be able to look back and say, I tried the thing I wanted to do without emotional attachment of looking at it as a failure? So now let's get into this. That's the emotional side. I don't feel like I could address like the practical side without really addressing the emotional, because it's like that as we as humans, we fear. We dwell in fear and we dwell in doubt, and we let fear and doubt dictate future decisions based on the unknown. But the unknown is the unknown. You can associate fear and doubt, or you can associate faith and hope. And so it was around 2015, 2016 that I had to take a step back and strategically say, I have a very successful business. I am an internationally award-winning photographer. I am the top 1% of my field. And people hear this and like, oh, that's a humble brag. Zero. I have zero attachment. I don't care about the awards. I'm just actually outlining them to say, this was a big thing in somebody's business. And for me, it then became, okay, how can I take my current audience and how can I slowly introduce them to see me in a new way? And I knew that one of two things were going to happen. People were going to look at that and say, that's totally not for me. And then other people were going to look at that and be like, wow, I really want to go on this journey with her. And so the pivot itself took around 2 years. So I would slowly start introducing other business related projects and creation by taking less projects in the photography world. And then in 2017, late 2016, I started introducing more opportunities for me to go deeper, teaching business owners, peeling back away from photography. And then in 2017, we just kind of came out and said, okay, my best friend Taylor Swift says, she's not really my best friend. I don't want people to think I'm trying to front. No, but Taylor says you chase 2 rabbits and you lose them both. And I felt like my business got to that point where I was just like, okay, enough straddling. You're going to go all in. And so I just said I was taking a sabbatical from photography. Like, why not just give yourself the permission to take a sabbatical for one thing and try it 100%? And lucky for us, we went all in and it worked for us.
That's amazing. I know. I remember the very first time I saw you, you were on stage at Traffic and Conversion a couple of years ago. And your energy, I mean, there's just something, because, you're just sitting there, you don't know what to expect. And I'm like, okay, I need some help on Instagram, because Instagram's like this mythical beast that everyone has, like, they always want to know how to do it. But it's like, I don't know, very few people have accomplished it. And your energy, I was like, oh, this girl's real. Because it's kind of, you just never know what you're going to get when you're sitting in, it's kind of like watching live music. You just don't know what's going to happen until people start talking.
Right.
So I got to give you kudos because you're so authentic and real, which leads me to this next question I have for you. So you have this major engaged following on Instagram. How do you stay so real on a platform that can be so fake?
I really temper the good and the bad. Like, I can't just go to Instagram and then read nice comments and be like, oh my God, this is so great. I love it. Like, hey, Jasmine, thanks for the content. Hey, Jasmine, learning a lot. And if I were to only listen to that and care about that, then I would be super highly focused and offended when somebody comes by and says that filter makes your teeth look blue. Like that was an exact DM that I got this morning. I hand to heaven, and I'm like, it's a filter. Maybe my teeth look blue. Okay, I didn't notice it, but fine. There are other people who say I talk too much. Other people who say I talk too fast. Other people who say, can you just cut the crap in the beginning and get to the main point? Like, so here's the thing. How do I show up as my authentic self? I don't care about the positive or the negative. I care about serving people well.
That's
And
so
I
good.
want you to like me. I just don't care if you do. And good content is the stuff that rises to the top on Instagram. And I focus on 100. Can I put out the best possible content that can come from my soul without the emotional attachment of people having an opinion about it? That's what I try to do every day.
I love it. And I feel like a lot of that might kind of stem from, I was listening to your podcast and you were talking with Ed Mylett, which amazing episode. You guys need to definitely
I
go and
just
check that one
love
out.
Ed. You know, my
He's
husband and I, he spoke
amazing.
to us so clearly. He's amazing.
He is. But on that podcast, you had kind of dropped a nugget that I think kind of like connected all the dots with you. Like I've been following you, like I said, since I saw you on Traffic Conversion, and you had talked about like how you were, growing up in government assistance, you were bullied in school, and that you kind of suppressed, like you kind of put yourself as like, oh, I'm the behind the scenes type person so that you wouldn't draw attention to yourself. So I want to kind of talk about like how you made that mindset shift, because I feel like that's a lot of it. A lot of people have that story going for them. Me personally, I grew up on government assistance. I was bullied. I like to play as like the behind the scenes girl. But in actuality, it's like, I don't want to draw attention because I don't want that negative, feeling to come back. It's almost like reliving middle school again. So how do you kind of do that mindset shift to where it's like, okay, I'm Jasmine Star. I need to show up. I need to serve these people because if not, I'm doing a disservice.
There came a point in my life, in my career, where I 100% had to make the decision to choose which one I wanted to weigh more in my life. And the two things that I was deciding between, like on the scale. So imagine me holding a scale, very much like the justice, Lady of Justice, right? On one side, I have my dreams and aspirations. And on the other side, I have people's opinions. And for years, I was so concerned about getting the balance off, right? I didn't want the scale to tip in one direction or the other, because I thought that if the scale tipped more towards my dreams and aspirations, that the negativity and people's opinions of, oh, look at what she's doing, it affected me in a deep and profound way. But I didn't want at the other side, like, oh, I'm so concerned about what people are saying that I won't pursue it. And then one day I decided, like it was literally like a flip of a switch. People's opinions don't pay my bills. People liking my photos don't pay my bills. I am here to stand in my purpose. And my purpose is to empower people to believe that what they once thought was impossible for them is actually a possibility in disguise. Whatever it is that you want to do in your business, however weird it is, underwater basket weaving, one-arm farmer in Indiana, the Etsy shop owner who's out here and doesn't know the internet. I believe it can happen because we live in an age where there's not an excuse for it not to happen. Mm-hmm. So then I just had to say, I am okay tipping the scale so far in pursuit of my dreams and my passions that for me to not say my truth, for me to not help people, for me to not encourage other people would be such a disservice to the reason why I'm here on the face of this earth. So I refuse to be behind the scenes if it means not pursuing my dream. And in likewise, same manner, I am totally okay being behind the scenes if it's to empower a bigger vision to pursue my dreams and my passions. It's the same thing. I don't have to be the front and I don't have to be in the back. It's just, what do I need to do to pursue my dreams and to stand in my purpose? And that is what I tell people again and again and again. It's either you're behind or you're in front. Either way, don't let somebody's opinion not rob you of the thing that you're supposed to do.
Absolutely. And I feel like also lately, I just kind of like putting myself as everyone listening to your content, I feel like you've been really kind of speaking to my soul, because you've been talking a lot about imposter syndrome. And it's crazy because it's like, you're such an amazing like, I don't know, outgoing, full of energy, amazing person. It's like, whoa, she suffers from that too. So let's talk about that. Like, what advice would you give to somebody who is having that self-doubt? Like, how do you, Jasmine Star, overcome that?
Um, I'll be very honest with you. I don't think that it's something that you overcome. I think it's something that you acknowledge. And I feel like, because what happens is, for years, I was looking at imposter syndrome as something that I had to overcome like an opponent, right? Like somebody at the opposite side of the boxing ring. But what I didn't realize, that the person on the opposite side of the boxing ring was a different version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I was fighting against myself. I was beating myself up. Me saying, who are you to do this? Me saying, get up, try harder. Me saying, you're so stupid. Me saying, you're not spending enough time. Me saying, look at what all these other people are doing. And I'm pummeling the other side of myself. Good God, what a shame. And it wasn't until I didn't come at it from, I have to overcome, I have to beat you. It's just, I have to acknowledge that other person. So instead of an opponent sitting on the opposite side of a boxing ring, I look at that person sitting on the opposite side of the room and deploy empathy. Like, hey, Jasmine sitting on the other side of the room who's scared and who's nervous and like, I don't know the outcome. Like, hey, Jasmine, like the Jasmine that's filled with fear and doubt, I see you, and we're going to have a conversation. Like, we're going to say that could go wrong or it could not. We don't know until we try. So how about you just sit there and you be quiet, because I'm going to try. And I'm going to continue learning, because if we look at things as solely success and failure, imposter syndrome skyrockets, because you're only looking at it as like it is the success or failure. But what if we were to put all of that out and say, whatever happens, good, bad, ugly, I learned something so powerful. And I feel like we undervalue the lesson. Like, the lesson is that you will only ever continue to iterate. The lesson is you will only ever continue learning, because let's just say, right? Let's just say you decide, I'm going to do X, and then you achieve X and you're like, great. You're never standing on the Everest of X, because you're always like, oh, well, here's another peak, and here's another peak, and here's another peak. So you can choose to pummel yourself every single time something good goes in your life to say, oh, well, look at, you didn't even do this. Now you got to do this again. Or you could say, oh, here's another mountain we have to climb. Let's do it. And I feel like imposter syndrome, it robs us, right? Like,
Yeah.
oh my God. Oh my God. And here's the thing. One thing you had said, you're like, oh, you've been really saying that a lot. And I'm like, Hollie, honest to God, there is some undercurrent that is happening on the internet that has magnified our deepest weaknesses and worries. Mm-hmm. I do not, girl, head out. You know what I want to talk about today on this podcast? Imposter syndrome. It is literally, this is what everybody's talking about. So let's bring it to the surface. Let's like burn it up and say, we all feel this way. We all feel this day. The decision for us is to choose, will we dwell in fear and doubt or in faith and hope?
Absolutely. I feel like, recognizing that and being aware of it, it can kind of almost be like a humbling experience where it's like, okay, that's good. I'm glad that I'm still kind of having that doubt. But like you said, it's all right, let's do this. Let's go and climb this next mountain. Just watch. Just sit there and watch. I'll do it. I got this. I love that. So before I let you go, I would love for you to kind of give some Instagram tips, because I feel like that's just, like I said, it's this mythical creature. So let's talk Instagram. If you were to say someone who is stagnant, say that they have less than 500 people following them and they really want to maximize their audience, they really want to grow, what would be the number one tip that you would give them to really kind of double their exposure and reach out to the audience that they're wanting to reach?
I don't want to give one. Can we give three?
Absolutely.
Like the number 3, girl.
Absolutely.
I like the number 3. And here's the best part is like these 3 tips can be deployed immediately. Like, finish this podcast, leave a review. Hey. Okay. And then once you do that, after you do that, then I want you to hop right in Instagram and I want you to take these actions. Number 1, depending how long you have, however much extra time you have in a day. I don't care if it's 10 minutes. I don't care if it's 75 minutes, like whatever excess time you have. Now let's talk about excess time. This is the time that you spend scrolling randomly on Instagram. This is the time that you spend waiting to buy your groceries at the store. This is the time that you spend waiting to upload something. Okay. Whatever those little pockets of time are, I want you to, number 1, go to your follower list. Like here, Hollie said you have 500 followers. Great. Go to your followers. And then what I want you to do is go and leave a comment on 3 photos from that account. You're just going to randomly pick. That's what you're going to do. And you are going to pour into your followers, because what happens is, my dad always said, you got to dance with the boy who took you to prom. Because what happens is, what we want is, we want other people to be interested in us. But you have 5. Do you understand? Like, let's just actually, Hollie, let's break this down. You're walking down the street and there's 500 people behind you holding the Hollie sign. What the heck? That is a full-on freaking rally. You would probably have to call Los Angeles the police department for 500 people walking down the street. And yet people are like, oh no, that's not a lot on Instagram. And I'm like, what? So what you're going to do is, number one, you're going to thank the people that are currently there. How do you thank them? You don't want to go like, thank you so much for following me. That's creepy. What you want to do is like their photos and leave comments. Why? Because the easiest conversion comes from a warm audience. Like, if you're wanting engagement on your account, why not go to somebody who already follows you, because they know you. You're not a stranger. So you give the type of engagement that you want to get to your followers. Number 2, I want you to find 2 to 3 hashtags that are specific to where your dream customer exists. Now, if you're a digital marketer, I don't want you going to digital marketing hashtags. Why? That's only filled with other digital marketers. Come on, guys. We got to find where our dream customer is existing. What is she spending time on? Let's just say she's totally into The Bachelor. Go to Bachelor Nation hashtag. You're going to be scrolling through that hashtag, and then you could possibly find a small business owner within Bachelor Nation hashtag. How do you do that? You do the work. You just click through accounts, and then what do? Like 3 photos, leave 3 comments. Go back to the hashtag, search. Find another somebody who could be possibly into your lifestyle group coaching. Great. Like 3 photos, leave 3 comments. Then what you're going to do is, anybody who watches your stories, because people, if you have a public profile, people can, so now we're into step number 3. I'm blending them all together, right? So step number 3 is that people can watch your stories if you have a public profile without following you. So how then, like, there's tons of creepers. How do you convert a creeper to a follower to somebody who engages? Well, people who watch your stories are going to be inclined to vote, right? A poll or a quiz. And if you're like, Jasmine, nobody's responding, nobody's really liking my photos. Well, if you have 3 to 4 people who actually take the time to vote on a quiz, go to your quiz results, whatever those results are, and then send them a DM. So let's just say, like, you ask, are you a morning person or are you a night owl, right? And then 3 people say that they're a night owl. Send them back like an emoji of an owl and be like, I'm a morning person, but props to you for being a night owl. Like, legitimately, you're just starting a conversation. You're not selling, you're not promoting. And if they saw that, if they saw that you responded and they're not even following you, they're going to follow you.
Yeah.
And if they know you're a real person, they're going to engage with you. 3 tips that, honest to God, take nothing more than time.
It's so good. And it goes back to, it's not like what's in it for me, but like, how can I help them? How can I make them feel felt? And I have a question, kind of spurred in my head regarding that. So would you recommend doing that is it different from a business page versus like a public figure or person page?
No. In fact, I'll give you a real life example. I had tagged Seth Godin. I shared one of his quotes. Seth Godin, like a walking human unicorn, right? So I shared one of his quotes on Instagram, and then I tagged him. And then you would think, because Seth Godin has a personal brand, that we believe it's either Seth or nobody who responds to us. And then one of his assistants, I don't know, Kylie, whatever her name was, she's like, hi, thanks so much for tagging Seth. We really appreciate it. And I was like, oh, I was kind of taken aback, and I was so impressed that, like, Seth is not going to put himself in a box saying, I have to be the person to respond to it, but it's also not fake being like, hi, it's Seth. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm really speaking to Seth. It was super forthcoming. And I think that the same thing applies if I was a photographer responding, or if I had a photography business. I totally think as long as a name is attributed to it, it's like, it's just human to human. We all know that there's a human on the other side, and we appreciate that on some level.
Absolutely. That's so good. Well, thank you so much, Jasmine, for taking the time and chatting with us, telling your story, being vulnerable with it, and also giving some massive value. Before I let you go, how can people find you online and consume your content?
We make it really easy. It's jasminestar.com and Jasmine Star on all social media outlets.
Thank you so much, Jasmine. You have a great day.
Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of Unleash Your Inner Legend. For more inspiration, make sure to subscribe by going to unleashyourinnerlegend.com. We'll see you guys next week.